Unmuted. Huh? Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. Sorry for the delay because of some technical issues that cropped up here. There was a previous lecture on hydrogen energy from HB9 for National Technology, and so we got delayed, and launching the program was a bit difficult today here. Anyways, right now we are in, and so uh, let us start today's lecture. So again, we come back on research methodology, research and publication ethics. So as we did last time, we have completed module A, research methodology and other parts as well. Means everything is completed in terms of this module. And not work. So the pen is also not working. Anyways, we will go ahead. Uh, are you able to hear? Unable to see properly? Hello? Any message? Okay. So we move on to module B, move last itself, research and publication ethics. So publication ethics already has been started by Kallol sir, and I'm taking the research formulation and design part. So whatever in green we have done in the last class means defining and formulating the research problem, selecting the problem, necessity of defining the problem. From today onwards, we'll move on to importance of literature review in defining a problem, literature review, primary and secondary sources, reviews, treaties, monograph, patents, web as source, searching the web, critical literature review, identifying areas from literature review. So we'll try to do as much as possible today, and then we'll continue in next class. So if we go back, if you remember, we did the research process in terms of a flow chart. So first is defining the research problem, which we did last class, and then review the literature, review concepts, theories, review first research findings. So we will continue to do this part, that is review the literature part into this class. This is chart that the research process consists of number of closely related activities, 1 to 5, and we are in these two. In the first class, we did defining the research problem, and today we are going into literature review, and we'll slowly move on. So what is the recap of what we did last class? That is research problem. If you all remember, in research process, the first and the foremost step happens to be that of selecting and properly defining a research problem. So this is what we studied last class. A researcher must find the problem, formulate it so that it becomes susceptible to research. Okay. Research problem refers to some difficulty, need which a researcher experiences in context of either theoretical or practical situation and wants to obtain a solution for the same. So what is the necessity for defining the problem? It is very important, as we discussed last day in details. This is we are recapitulating before we move on. The necessity is that quite often we all hear that the problem clearly stated is a problem half solved. So a problem which is clearly noted down, so and you have understood with clarity, then it is the problem which you can easily solve it. What is the technique for defining the research problem? We did that there are several techniques one by one which we have to do. That is statement of problem in a general way, understanding the nature of the problem, surveying the literature available. So this is what we will do today. developing ideas through discussions, and rephrasing the research problem into a working proposition. So we need to follow a sequential pattern. First, the problem is stated in a general way. Then the ambiguities are resolved. By what process? By literature survey, understanding the problem, and through discussion. Then what you do? Thinking and rethinking the process, resulting in more specific formulation of the problem, so that it may be a realistic one in terms of available data resource and is also analytically meaningful. So this is what about research problem. So one of the important technique is surveying the available literature for defining the research problem and understanding the research problem, and later on rephrasing into a working proposition. So that we will study today. What is review of literature? You all know, because you all have started research and you all know what is review of literature. But there are certain steps and there are certain rules which you should follow while reviewing the literature. So we will just go through them one by one. So what is literature survey? For a researcher enrolled for a PhD degree, it is quite often required to present a synopsis or the proposal of the topic and submit to the necessary committee or the research board for approval. So this you do, and all of you must have done. At this juncture, the researcher should undertake extensive literature survey connected with the problem. So the best way is that you do a in-depth literature survey at that time itself. Means while you are presenting in terms of the board, in front of the board or committee, and then that extensive literature survey will help you to defend your problem. Now, first to understand that problem. Once you understand, you can easily defend, and then you can solve during your course of research. For this purpose, abstracting and indexing journals and published and unpublished bibliography is the first place to go. Academic journals, conference proceedings, government reports, books, etc. must be tapped depending on nature of the problem. In this process, it should be remembered that one source will lead to another. So you all know that while searching the literature, say for example, you are studying, doing a literature survey from a review article. So the review article will have mentioned in brief what are the progress in that field and what are the gap areas. And during that course, the review article refers to many publications. So what you will gather from that review article, means from that source, you will lead to another. So you will lead to some specific source or specific article which describes one specific problem, and so on and so forth. The earlier studies, if any, which are similar to the study in hand, should be carefully studied. Okay. Always remember, a good library will be a great help to the researcher at this stage. So if you can create a good library, you throughout your research days, you can just refer back to the library and find the possible solution. Literature review is the documentation of a comprehensive review of the published and unpublished work from secondary sources of data in the areas of specific interest to the researcher. So each of you, so there is a wide spectrum of researchers who are attending the class today and this course. Somebody from biological sciences, somebody from chemical sciences, somebody from physics, engineering, and so on, material science. So for each of you, you have to go to a specific field in which you are studying and do a comprehensive literature survey from various sources. So we'll discuss what are the sources. What is the aim of that? The main aim is to find out problems that are already investigated, means already done, and those that need further investigation. So in what way it will help you? So the main aim is that you should take up or define the problem in such a way that has not been investigated, and an investigation is required in that field so that it becomes of importance to the society. So the main aim is to find that problems, the research problem which has been already investigated, separate them out, and out of that know the problems which has to be or needs an investigation. So you will choose a research problem in that field which is requiring an investigation. It is an extensive survey. First of all, it has to be an extensive survey. You need to devote a lot of time on that survey of all available past studies relevant to the field of investigation. So whatever is relevant to your field of investigation, you have to properly go back and keep a proper record of all the studies that has been done. Only then you will be able to point out where the investigations needs to be done, or that means which is noted as the gap areas. Gap areas means where you will fill up the gap. Okay. Two people have, so we'll let them in. Okay, so we move on. It gives us knowledge about what others have found out in the related field of study. It will give you what knowledge that what other scientists or other researchers have found out in your field of study and how they have done so. So you'll also come to know the research methodology, how they have done it. Okay. So it will be of immense help. So what is the purpose of literature review? The purpose of literature review is to gain a background knowledge of the research topic. So whatever topic you are investigating, you will get a background knowledge on that research topic. To identify the concepts relating to it. So what concepts you can identify? The potential relationship between them and to formulate the researchable hypothesis. So after problem definition, defining the problem and if you do a proper literature survey, it will be easier for you to formulate the research hypothesis. And the researchable hypothesis means a research hypothesis which is possible to solve. Okay. To identify the appropriate methodology, as I told you, it will help you also to identify the research methodology, means what way you will solve the research problem or the research hypothesis. The research design, it will help you to make the research design, methods of measuring concepts and techniques of analysis. So for example, material research. So which technique you will use? So there are spectroscopic techniques, there are microscopic techniques, there are textural analysis techniques, and so on. So once you do a proper literature survey, you can understand which technique help to find out the property of the material in what way. That way you understand, okay, this scanning electron microscopy is required to know the microstructure of the material. Okay. Small angle X-ray scattering is helping us to know the texture or the pore size of the material. Okay, the X-ray diffraction pattern is helping us to know the crystal structure of the material. So the methodology, the appropriate methodology and the technique you will use during research process, we will also come to know. Okay. So that way, that is one of the purpose of research or the review of literature. To identify the data sources used by other researchers. So other researchers, say for example, for identification of the crystal structure of the material. So there are data sources available like ICSD data, JCPDS data. You have prepared some material and want to know, okay, what is this material in terms of crystal structure? So a proper literature survey will help you. Okay, this is the this is matching with this JCPDS number or this ICSD collection code, and you can know what material you have prepared and how the structure varies with the previously reported data. So this is how a proper literature survey is important. You don't have to run here and there. You already have the library. You just refer to a library and you will be able to know. To learn how others structure their reports. So say for example, what I generally tell means I have done work on catalysts, heterogeneous catalysts, which are solid state catalysts. Solid state catalysts, why they are heterogeneous? Because they catalyze gas phase or liquid phase reactions. So for some gas phase reaction or liquid phase reaction is occurring over my catalyst. So the catalyst data we investigate and find out the catalytic activity, the stability, and so on. What else? We have to know the structure of the catalyst, the crystal structure, the morphology, the surface area. But which one I will place first? Whether I will place the surface area first, or the microstructure first, or the textural property first, or the catalytic activity first? We don't know. But if we do a proper literature survey, say 5 people, 5 different literature, 5 different articles you have studied, you can know, okay, in what structure, in what sequential fashion, each of these techniques or the results are placed. So initially, the crystal structure of the heterogeneous catalyst is identified and reported. Then the surface area, which is important from the catalytic point of view, is identified or measured and reported. Then the microstructure, and so on. And finally, the catalytic activity is reported, and the catalytic activity is now correlated with the physical and chemical properties which you have identified with the other techniques which you have reported earlier. So in this way, you can structure your report. You can do the other way also. This is not strictly that you have to do this way. Some people report in my thesis also, I have reported in one paper the catalytic activity first, and then we have compared the fresh catalyst and the used catalyst, how they vary, so that correlating the catalytic activity data becomes easier. So this I found out from a previous one of the literature. So literature survey in this way helps you in structuring your reports. Okay, so what way, if we just find out what is the purpose of literature review, you gain a background knowledge. So you are not going blank to the committee, and you have a lot of ideas regarding your field. Find a correlation or formulate researchable hypothesis. Okay. Identify the research methodology, means what others have followed. Identify the research design, methods, or techniques of analysis. What data sources others have used and how they have reported, in what structure, in what order they have reported their data. Okay, so this is the purpose of your literature review. What benefits will you get? So okay, these were the purpose, and what benefits we get. So for getting the benefits of literature review, I did a literature survey. I just typed in Google what are the benefits of literature review, and got several pages. And this is one which I have taken. This, so I mentioned it clearly. This is one. This is the link which I've used, and they have mentioned these benefits of literature review. So for the class also, what I'm taking, I am referring to the literature. Mostly I'm following Kothari, Professor Kothari's book, and sometimes I'm going to the web. So this is, since it is a literature review, I went to the web and found out so many things. So this is interesting. I just typed benefits of literature review, and one important our result I got, I mentioned the link, and this is what I will read out to you what is mentioned there. And it is very interesting. Literature reviews allows you to gain familiarity with the current knowledge in your chosen fields, okay, as well as the boundaries and limitations of the field. Okay, so here we mentioned in additionally what way the literature review helps, means where you have to stop and what are the limitations of your field which you cannot go. Literature review also helps you to gain understanding of the theories driving the field, allowing you to place your research question into that context. Literature reviews provides an opportunity for you to see and even evaluate successful and unsuccessful assessment and research methods in your field. Okay, so some negative reports are also reported, and you can refer those. Literature review prevent you from duplicating the same information. Isn't this important? Okay, what has already been reported, I am not going into this, isn't it? So this is so much important that you cannot duplicate the same information, right? As others writing in the field, allowing you to find your own unique approach to your topic. You, with an improper literature review, you do something. At the end of the day, you end up that, okay, this data is already reported and the report is of similar fashion which I have done. So we are not going to make that big mistake. We'll do an extensive literature review. We have to find out what is already reported, and we'll try to find out the gap areas in terms of critical literature review and work on those. Literature review gives you familiarity with the knowledge in your field, giving you the chance to analyze the significance of your additional research. Okay, so you can do some additional data collection, and a significant addition you can do to the already reported research. So this is how literature review can help you or benefit. Next, we come to how to conduct the literature survey. So how you will conduct the literature survey. So you have already defined your problem by discussion. Now you have to give a proper or formulate your research hypothesis and reformulate your research problem. Now you do a review. How you will do that? This class is meant for that. A literature review is a survey of scholarly sources on a specific topic. It provides an overview of current knowledge, allowing you to identify relevant theories, methods, and gaps in existing research. The basic component of literature review include description of the publication, a summary of the publication and main points, discussion of gaps in research, evaluation of publications' contribution to the topic. Okay, these are the basic components of literature review. We will conduct the literature review from the sources of literature. So what are the sources? You can refer books and you can refer journal, which we generally do. And in journals also, we generally go better if you conduct a review article. If you refer a review article, it will be of great help. Books gives you a lot of fundamental information. So books you should always refer. Electronic databases, bibliographic databases, abstract databases, full text databases, government and industry reports, internet, research, dissertation or thesis. Nowadays you have, from my time onwards, I've seen all the theses are available on the internet. So you can refer those and it will give you a fair idea how the thesis is written and how other previous students have structured their thesis. What is the research methodology they have adopted in your field? And what gap areas they have solved. So these are the primary and secondary sources. Reviews. The review of a book often evaluates the work in question based on strong and weak points, sometimes ending with a recommendation or a dismissal. So as I told you, review articles are very important because it reviews the current data available critically, means the good reviews, and ends up with a recommendation. Okay, what are the gap areas? And dismissal. Okay, what are the well-studied areas? So you reject the well-studied area and work on the gap area which is proposed in the review. So reviews are best to refer to. Treatise is a formally written paper about a specific subject. It's like an essay but longer. More appropriate topics for a treatise includes philosophy, religion, economics, and so forth. Okay? These are for these kinds of things. Monographs. A detailed scholarly piece of writing on a specific subject. A monograph is a specialist work of writing in contrast to reference work or exhibition on a single subject or an aspect of a subject, often by a single author or artist, and usually on a scholarly subject. So this is what definition of monographs. So you can refer monographs, but mostly on scholarly subjects. Patents, I think Sir Kallol sir is taking a lot on patents because it comes under IPR. A patent is a granting of a property right by a sovereign authority to an inventor. So you can refer patents, okay? This grant provides the inventor exclusive rights to the patented process, design, or invention for a designated period in exchange for a comprehensive disclosure of the invention. They are a form of incorporation right, okay? So, I don't know whether you have already studied patents, but a fair idea. So once an inventor files a patent, so they have exclusive right to the patented process. Okay. So you have to be, so you can understand how how you can use or understand the patented process and use it in your research. But remember, the rights, the intellectual property rights stays with the inventor for a patent. We'll be discussing details in the ethics classes. Web as a source, searching the web. So as I told you, I just, for benefits of literature, I just typed in the net, Google, and I got, means with these keywords I got. So you can, in the web, you can use your keywords to begin and searching for your sources. So in the web, you can search in Google, and there are specific scientific sites, as you all know, like Scopus, Science Direct for Elsevier journals, ACS journals. You have ubs.acs.org. So dedicated websites are there to search work related to the area. It's various databases. So ACS, you have RSC, you have Wiley, you have Springer, you have Science Direct for Elsevier, and Google you always have, which covers everything. So what you have to do means how to conduct, what are the most important, I told you, is the critical literature. So you have to do a perform critically so that you come to know the recommendation and dismissal and identify the, if you do a critical review, you will be able to identify gap areas from the literature review. And then propose your working hypothesis. So you propose a research problem, do a critical review, identify the gap areas, and then propose a development. It helps in development of your working hypothesis. A good literature review doesn't just summarize sources. So it's not for summarizing. Okay, we have a very, very big table and you are summarizing it one by one. These are the various work which has been carried out. But a good literature review will analyze, synthesizes, and critically evaluates to give a clear picture of the state of knowledge on the subject. Okay. Say, for example, I was telling about my area of research is development of catalyst or heterogeneous catalyst for a particular reaction. I can just list what people have all done one by one, the various catalysts that has been used. But what is a critical review? I have to find out which catalyst gave what activity, which catalyst gave what stability. So certain catalysts are good in terms of activity, certain catalysts is good in terms of stability. But why? Why certain catalysts are active? If you know answer that why question, then you will come to know that okay, certain catalyst follows a specific mechanism. The reaction goes through certain intermediates, and I am able to critically evaluate, okay, if this goes through this kind of intermediate, this reaction over this catalyst, this is a good catalyst. Or if this goes through a different way, it is a stable one. So I identify critically which are the mechanistic, from the mechanism of the reaction over this catalyst, which catalyst is giving what results. Means correlation of the properties of the catalyst or nature of the catalyst with the reaction rate. If I can do that, I can generalize or propose a working hypothesis. Okay, I will work on this catalyst, and this is such an activity and huge activity and high stability is expected. Okay, so you can trade off. Similarly, you can think of your problem, what area which you are working. How you will search for the relevant literature? So you have to go to Institute Lively Catalog. As I told you, CAS, Scopus, Google Scholar, JSTOR, EBSCO, Project News, Medline, Conlit, Inspec, and so on. So there are so many web sources to go and investigate or do a proper literature. These are specific for each fields: physics, engineering, computer science, economics, life science, biomedicine, Medline, humanity, social science, something like this, and so on. Read the abstract to find out whether an article is relevant to your question. So once when I was in US, so one professor told a very important thing which I still is there in my mind, that okay, you have 10 papers to read. Definitely you will not go through out the whole 10 papers. So what you will do? He says, I will read only the abstract, the conclusion, and the figures which are there. From the abstract, conclusion, and the figures, I will have a fair idea in few minutes what this article is answering or what problem is this article solving. And I find that, okay, this is a fairly well said words, because this I still follow and find that it is effective. Otherwise, what will become, okay, you have so many articles, you become bored. You cannot go through each and every article. If some abstract, some conclusion and the figures attracts you, okay, some different way these guys are telling, then you will go through the article, that specific article. But you cannot go through everything. So during literature, you have to have an idea, okay, what are the important points I will go through. So this is abstract. When you find a useful book or article, check the bibliography to find other relevant sources. To identify the most important publications on your topic, take note of recurring citations. Look out for research groups involved all over the world and follow their activities. This is also very important, and I am sure that many of you must be following this. So what happens? Suppose I'm working on iron oxide catalyst, or the reaction I'm talking about, so say water splitting reaction for hydrogen generation. So I will regularly check research articles. I will go to the abstract, the references, the figures, as I told you, the conclusions. And I will come to know, okay, from the authors, this author is repeatedly publishing in this field. Say, for example, on iron oxide. What I will do, I will identify the research group and follow their activities. So that way, it will help us to remain aware of the contemporary peers which are working in the same field, and read their upcoming publications to have a fair idea, okay, what are the new knowledge these research groups are giving in this field. That will keep you updated in that field as well. So that is another way, and definitely I know that you must be following certain research groups which are active, working in your field, and publishing recurrently in your field. And that way keeps you updated in that field by following their research. And it also sometimes gives you a direction. Okay, they have done this much, but there is a gap area which I can solve. And you can propose a research hypothesis in that gap area. Chemical abstracts is a periodical index that provides numerous tools such as SkyFinder as well as tag keywords, summarizes indexes of disclosures and structure of compounds in recently published scientific documents. Types of chemical documents: literature databases, chemical structure database, crystallographic database, as I was talking about ICSD and BCPDS. Who are in organic chemistry does NMR spectral database, reaction database, thermophysical database for people who are working in thermal fields. Okay. But what chooses this is how you will do the literature survey. How will you choose your research sources which are topically relevant, means within your topic, will tend to deviate from your topic suddenly. So I was investigating iron oxide and catalysts. So I will find that iron oxide is a multifunctional material, and it has application in other fields as well. Okay, but I will try to restrict myself in my field, the reactions which I am investigating. So that will help you, or that will help me to save my time and also gather knowledge more on my specific topic instead of deviating. Appropriately aged. Find sources that are not too old for your assignment. Well, I may not agree always because some old the articles are very helpful because they give more fundamental information. But majorly try to restrict yourself to recent research. That will help you to know the trend which is being followed in the scientific world at present. Credible. Here comes the typical impact factor uh, of journals. Find sources whose authors have authority on your topic. So generally what you try to do, okay, articles which have been published in high impact journals, I tend to read those or follow those, and it's okay. It's a very good uh, idea to, and or a very good practice to follow. So you try to do credible sources. You can find something interesting in very low impact journals, but but you can avoid that because okay, it may not have that credibility, or from authors which have not done research in the previous field. But not always. You can. It's not a general statement. Appropriately publish. Find sources that meet your instructor's guidelines. So you have your instructor has guided and given you certain uh, sources, so you try to follow those. So how it helps is again benefits I have already said. It sharpen the problem, get proper understanding of the problem chosen, acquire proper theoretical and practical knowledge, show the problem under study relates to previous research, know whether the proposal problem has already been solved. So these are the points which you should keep in mind while reviewing the literature. Relevant means, as I told you, topical relevant. Original works, read with comprehension, read in time and discuss. So after reading, try to discuss with your colleagues and supervisor. Index the literature means make a proper indexing. Clear and unambiguous, empirical, verifiable, interesting, novel and original availability of guidance. So this is what we should keep in mind while reviewing the literature. So this is the assignment. Mention the benefits of literature review, point wise. If you can write some point. Purpose of literature review, that also in point. Some sources, you can write some sources, I hope. And some points to be considered while reviewing the literature. So these are the 4 questions. You keep it ready for today's class so that you can answer during that examination. Okay. Thank you. And if you have any question, feel free to email me or by webinar also you can send the assignments and you can continue. Thank you so much.